God made a promise to King David in 2 Samuel 7. The Lord declares to you that the Lord will make you a house. God wasn't talking about a house with walls, roof, and windows. The house that God will provide is an eternal kingdom. This is one of the central promises in the Bible, for God says of the coming king that will reign over this house, I will be a father to him, and he shall be a son to me. This father and son language is important, as it's found also in the New Testament, when God names Jesus, my beloved son, and when Jesus calls God his Father in heaven. With that in mind, let's return to David and the promise God made to him. David is considered the greatest king of Israel. In the Old Testament, he's as important as Abraham and Moses. David's reputation was a hero of sorts. When he was a young shepherd, God chose David to become king. Soon after, David slayed Goliath when the soldiers of Israel were afraid to fight him. And later, as king, he built up Israel's army might and secured the nation. David was incredibly successful. It's quite common to think that God rewards success. In fact, David fell into this way of thinking. One day, he looked all around at all God had done for him and started dreaming about what might come next. David noticed that he was living in a beautiful house, but God was seen as dwelling in a tent. And that's when it hit him. I will build God a house. And that's how the story turns from David being a bigger-than-life hero to David being caught in sin. David got his relationship with God all mixed up. Instead of God being the gracious giver and David the thankful receiver, David positioned himself as the giver and God as the receiver. But God is always the giver. So God turned it around. God will make the house for David. That's what God's promise does. It tells you what God is going to do for you. David's story illustrates what happens when people start thinking they can take on the role of God. In fact, the rather famous story of David and Bathsheba shows that after breaking the first commandment by putting himself in God's place, David goes on to break the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th commandments. David went from being recognized as a hero to knowing himself as a full-blooded sinner. A sharp turn like that is difficult. David did his very best to hide his sin, but when his coveting, lying, stealing, cheating, and murdering became known, David was crushed. Neither his success as king nor his hero status could help him here. And a full-blooded sinner with a completely sinful heart needs more than just a little help to get better. So that's what David asks for. Create in me a clean heart, O God. This is the voice of David's heart calling to God for mercy. A new, clean heart that clings to God's mercy is truly the gift God alone can give. David shows us how God favors his children. God doesn't give his grace and promise because you're some sort of hero. Rather, God's favor is seen in how he treats his children after they've sinned, by giving the very mercy and forgiveness that he has promised.